Hello YouTube, I am Pinstar, and this is not Banished. No, this is Game Dev Tycoon, Strategy and Tactics. I've decided to add a little bit of variety to my channel. Am I giving up on my Banished Let's Play series? Absolutely not. Heck no. But I figured, you know what, having an extra game here of a slightly different variety might help spice things up a little bit, give you guys a little bit of variety here. I'm also going to start this video off by giving a formal announcement. So let me detail my new posting schedule. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I will be releasing a new Banished game in my Banished Let's Play series. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I will be releasing a new video for Game Dev Tycoon. So, and I'll continue sort of bouncing back and forth between those two until one and or the other of those series is done, and then just swap them out for an entirely new game, and start up a series for that. So, without any further ado, let us dive into Game Dev Tycoon. Alright, so let's give ourselves a name and our company a name. Well, since Ficklewood seems to be doing just fine as sort of our series arc name here, let's call this Ficklewood Studios. And of course, I am Pinstar. As far as the hair goes, there's no permanent cowlick hair option, but I'll go with that. And yes, we will unlock our hints. I actually did a full recording of this before, but yeah, that didn't save the video for that. So I'm starting afresh, starting anew here. And let us overwrite that. Okay, so in terms of what I am doing here, this is assuming that you have gone through the tutorials and know a little bit about the game itself. So I'm not going to be covering the absolute basics here, but just like with Banished, I will be covering strategy and tactics as to why you might make certain strategic decisions throughout the game and how to grow your company in the early game to be be much more stronger in the mid game. Because with this particular game, the early game's fairly straightforward, but the mid game you can screw up the early game at the very end and really screw yourself over for the mid game and make it very hard to proceed successfully. So I'm going to show you how to avoid that and get yourself a strong start for the mid game. Okay, so at this point in the game, we have 70k, we are at the beginning of the game, and we don't have much in the way of options. So let's develop a new game. Okay, so I'll give you guys a little background here. I actually was with the Game Dev Tycoon community right when the game first released, long before it even came to Steam. And quite a bit has changed since I last picked it up. So I'll be pointing out little snippets as to where things have changed based on my past experience. And the first change right here is the topics. Back in the day, back when I was first playing the game, the first 6 topics, or it may have been first 8 topics, were all static. They were always the same topics. But and then after that, they were randomized. In here, the topics are actually random from the beginning. So your very first 4 topics can be completely different every single time. And I'm still on the fence as to whether or not I see that as a good thing. I mean, there are some good things about this in the fact that it changes up your gameplay, especially in the early game. But not all topics are created equal, and you can get some real mothball topics in the beginning and make it a little bit harder until you expand out and research yourself some more effective and more diverse topics. Speaking of mothball topics, superheroes is not the most versatile, but actually not too horrible for us in here. Now, you may be asking, how do I know? I haven't unlocked any hints for superheroes yet. I have myself the handy-dandy wiki in front of me. Now, whether or not you decide to play with the wiki, that is your own personal choice. The fact that they add hints and on-screen guides and references to each of these. Basically, as you play the game and do game analysis, it basically populates the wiki onto your game. But since I'm going to be speaking of strategy and tactics, I'm going to assume that you either have the wiki or you've played through the game enough that all the hints have been strategically placed on here. So just to keep that in mind. So, looking at my guide here, superheroes is only really good with action and a little bit with RPGs, but it's good for all audiences, so we start with them. And obviously we're going to start with an action here, just because that's the one that it's good with, might as well. Now, in terms of choosing between our platforms here, I am a big fan of the PC. Yes, the G64, especially in the early game, has much better market share. And it will continue having much better market share, but it's also $15K more to develop for it. And in the early games, until you get your smash hit, your market share and therefore the raw sales is not going to really change too much from one to another. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the PC. And as you can see from all the hints I've already unlocked through my previous playthroughs, I use the PC quite a bit. What are we going to call this? Call it Raccoon Man. Partner with Squirrel Girl from the Marvel Universe. Okay, so graphics, no reason not to jump right into graphics, 2D graphics version 1. That 5K makes it up with the higher quality in the game. Alright, so we start generating our bubbles, and we get to our first screen here. Now, in terms of what I'm going to be doing in terms of these development screens and how I'm going to be adjusting my sliders, I'm actually not going to be adjusting my sliders to be super optimal. Instead, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be balancing the sliders with an eye for even experience gain. And I don't mean even within a single game, because I mean, if we just left it like this, not so good. We don't need story and quests on a action game. So I'm going to drop that down to nothing. And I'm going to ramp our engine all the way up to the max. And I'm going to keep our gameplay right here in the middle. Alright, so we start generating some bubbles. Alright, now in our next screen we're going to do something very similar. I'm going to max one out, in this case artificial intelligence, because it works well for action games, and we're going to drop one down to the bottom for dialogues in this case, because I mean, really, who wants people talking in an action game? I'm just here to punch people. That's a superhero action game. Okay, and then lastly here, it's going to be pretty much the same thing. We're going to drop one down to nothing and up one to another. Now, is sound really that important here? I mean, obviously, there's graphics already has the notes here that says graphics are more important. But I'm going to keep graphics here in the middle because, again, I want even experience gain. So even though sound is not really that gigantically important, we're going to focus on it. The little details and minutia and little specks of quality that you might be able to squeeze out of these early games is not as important as getting our experience points that we want, because we're setting up for a sort of an end of the first phase push to have things at an experience point level that we want. Almost slipped a bug in my in here. I gotcha. So what we're really after is this bonus, this 1.5 bonus for having both a new topic and a new combo. The maximum bonus that you used to be able to get back in the day was higher because it actually gave you a bonus multiplier if you properly chose a good combo. But they apparently took that out of the bonus multiplier, so now it's just new combo, or new topic, new combo, and we're going to want to hit that with every single game in our early stage here. So let's release this thing. Now, after you do a game, they give you an option of doing a game report. For the time being, we're going to ignore these. We're going to just let them accumulate. They don't go away. But they basically populate your hit menu, and they also generate some research points, which will be important later. But for the time being, we're just going to make a new game. Alright, so harping on before, since we already used the superhero genre, we're not going to be using it again at all, at least for the early stage. We can revisit it later on when we get into the mid-game, but for the early game, we are done with superheroes. We do not want to use them again, because then we won't get our new topic bonus. Alright, so let's dive into government. Now, government, everyone's favorite thing to play here, is only good for simulation and strategy, which is actually a really good thing. I'm being a simulation and strategy guy myself. Once we get to the mid-game, I'm going to be shaping this company to be simulation and strategy focused, which means having government as a topic and having it really good for those two topics is actually a really good thing here. So, genre? Let's do... I don't know. Let's do a simulation. Why not? And once again, on the PC. What are we going to call this? How about... TPS Reports. The game. Where you can fill them out online and compare your reports to other players. Hey, it worked for Papers, Please. That's a game about paperwork and is actually quite fun. I'm horrible at it, but it is a legitimately good game. Check it out. Okay, Raccoon Man is in. We're getting their reviews for that, and like I said, we're not in a position to get sky-high ratings right now. So if you get 8, 7, 6s, even 5s, maybe a few 4s, not the end of the world. We just need the game to turn a profit, and getting ratings like that is good enough for me. We are just sort of, like I said, we're focused on our experience rather than getting ourselves geared up here for awesome games. So because simulation is another tech-focused game, we're going to keep our sliders exactly where they are. These are the tech game sliders. Even if these are not going to necessarily be ideal for a simulation game. Like I said, we're just going to keep them as is right here. Yep, and keep that sound, graphics, that's fine, world design, that's fine, doing well. Alright, got that sales record in, got some dandruff itch going there. That's just what I call it when they stop to scratch their head. It's actually a legitimate gameplay thing where it will actually halt their work while they are busy scratching their heads. Will you stop generating new bugs, dude? Thank you. Okay, probably going to be just about as good. Now, as you can see, I focused the game for tech, but we still made more design bubbles. That's actually to be expected. The game is actually a little bit slanted towards tech bubble or design bubbles over tech bubbles. The way the different categories work out, some of these, like for example, story quests will generate mostly design bubbles, and dialogues are design bubbles, whereas artificial intelligence is more of tech bubbles. And if you add up all the percentages, of all these different factors, it actually comes out ahead for design bubbles. So everything being equal and even, you're going to have more design bubbles. And so in the early game, that's kind of hard to compensate for, but you don't really need to that much. In the later game, there's some things you can do about that to sort of, if you want a tech-focused company, so you can sort of stack the odds a little bit more towards tech bubbles, which is precisely what I want to do, because I like myself my strategy and sim games. Okay, reviews, how we doing here? Alright, not quite as good, but good enough. It makes me a profit. And one more time, develop a new game, post-apocalyptic. Post-apocalyptic. How? What do we have here for post-apocalyptic? All right, post-apocalyptic. Those are good for action and RPGs, which is fine by me. All right, so since we've been doing 2 tech-heavy games, I'm going to actually make this one into an RPG. And once again, on the PC, because RPG is one of the design-focused games. All right, so what are we going to call this bad boy? Let's say After the Twinkie. Yeah, I can spell it. After the Twinkie shortage. They should have never closed that down. Yes, I know they're making them again, but it's a completely different company. Or they basically fired everyone and hired someone new. It does not taste the same. So the old Twinkie. After the old Twinkie shortage. New Twinkies. It's like new Coke. Okay, so since we are balancing out to a design-focused game, I'm going to drop engine down to 0 and up story quests to full, while keeping gameplay right here in the middle. And again, this sort of acts as a complete counterbalance to the other tech-focused game. So that way, my experience points will even themselves out, because the amount of experience you gain in a given field will depend on how much time was devoted to that. And now that we are pointing more specifically towards design, design's going to be much higher than tech, which is fine, actually. I'll get into the design versus tech balance later on in the mid-game, because that's when one becomes more controllable and also more important. Yeah, it's going to tell you that the G64 is doing so much better. We'll do fine without that. Okay, yeah, in the world of the post-Twinkie era, there is no sound, and yet there's basic sounds. All right, so we'll do that. Counterbalance out our stuff. All right, clear out those bugs. And let's finish this. All right, new topic, no combo again, and heck, we even got artificial intelligence to level 2. That's fine. It's level 1 versus level 2 really doesn't make much of a difference. What we are after here is level 3 in everything, and that's going to take us about 9 games or so. But we want to arrive there just sort of right on time. Okay, so we'll release that. Now, our next stage here, we really wanted to get 50 research points to get our next item out. But we have fallen short. And that's because we haven't been generating any of these game reports. The amount of research points you gain actually has been nerfed compared to what it used to be, but now you can make them up by generating these game reports, which didn't used to exist. So I'm going to go ahead and generate one of these game reports to get ourselves some extra research points, and also to add to our hint screen here, even though I have the wiki right here. Oh, and just as a side thing, I would actually recommend not playing with the wiki right away. It helps you learn and explore the game, and just sort of get your feet wet, and yeah, you're probably going to fail horribly at first, but it's sometimes, losing is fun, right from Dwarf Fortress. But here, this is assuming that you've already gone through that and are looking to get yourself a really, really good start going here. All right, superheroes in action is great. Level design, good. Okay. Hey, level design is good, so don't make them fly through rings. All right, and we've got contracts. We don't need to worry about contracts right now. Yep, and we're telling about the TES, aka the NES. But right now, what we are interested in is some research. We want that custom game engine, and we want that custom game engine right after our 3rd game. No later, because we want to get started on working on some of the good stuff that comes with it, namely 2D graphics version 2. And why are we so interested in 2D graphics version 2? I'll tell you later. But first, we got to make our engine. So we're going to call this the Pinstar Power Engine. And like I said, we want that 2D graphics too. These other 2 items, you can take them or leave them. Me, I'm going to leave them. I don't actually really need them. And I'll explain why later, but that 2D graphics version 2, that's the whole reason why we're getting this whole new engine. It's just for that new graphics. By not including those features, not only does the engine cost less, but it also is finished faster. All right. We are done with our engine. We are ready to use it for our next game. So why is this new engine so important? What is going to be our next game? Well, you'll have to find out next time. This is Pinstar signing out. Have a good one, everyone.